Welcome back, folks. I know it's been a while, but there's been a lot of crazy stuff. A lot of hijinks that kept me from finishing watching all the episodes. So, as I mentioned last time, before we get into it, I decided that we're going to look at all three parts of Red Dwarf Series 9 Back to Earth. So, that is why it's taken me a little long to get back here. Plus, I had some glitches. But that's just a few programming notes. Let's now get into the show. So, welcome back, folks, to Red Dwarf Rewatch, presented by the Not Funny Guys. I am your host, Dr. John. And so we are looking now at Red Dwarf Back to Earth, also known as Series 9. Now, this was originally come out in 2009, which is now 10 years from when we left off in Series 8, and some things have changed. So these were apparently put together as a 3-part 25-minute special to celebrate the 21st anniversary of the show, and they aired on Dave TV, which is now something called something else. There's a joke made in it about how it's named after Dave Lister. Apparently the new episodes were part of an effort by Dave TV to screen more original programming instead of just being a repeat, which is what they typically are. They get referenced in Top Gear and things like that as a place a lot of people go to watch repeats. It was noted that the idea that there would have been a live show had been canceled due to time and money, and that there was this idea that they put these 3-episode specials instead. As Series 7, these episodes were not filmed in front of a live studio audience like Season 7. However, like the 7th series, it has shown the audience at a later date to record audience laughter. So there is a laugh track, but it was done later. And these came out on consecutive days. So Episode 1 came out on April 10th, 2009. Episode 2 came out on April 11th, 2009. And the final episode, I believe, came out on April 12th. So there is a little pattern here of how these shows, at least they came out back to back and you weren't waiting a week. So let's just get into this because we've got a big episode here. So we're going to start. All series episodes were written and directed by co-creator Doug Naylor. So let's start with part 1. We get this opening with a weird shot of London, which apparently has what appears to be a ziggurat. And everybody gets their own title cards, which is great. Of course, like I said, we're 9 years, we're technically 10 years later than what they had, where we left off. And I think in show, they're actually, it says 9 years later. We find Lister walking down the hallway, and I just want to say right off the bat, the whole use of the CGI stuff is a little jarring sometimes, considering that I kind of prefer the old kind of like real sets. But who knows, they may be trying to save money. Meanwhile, as Lister's walking the hall, tossing what looks to be an apple, turns out to be a tomato, we find Rimmer in his bunks. He's gone back to being a hologram. So we're not even going to address at this point how we left off Series 8, which is hilarious. He's trying to get the Scudder to help him work on a calendar photo portrait. Basically, it's, I don't know, I don't remember what it was. The calendar was for something stupid, but Crichton is apparently off on holiday, and so he's absent. Apparently he went to a broom cupboard on B deck, and he sent a postcard. Lister, like I said, eating tomatoes, and apparently he starts talking about how he hates them, he's allergic to them, and how does he, and apparently he says it, but it has to save water. And Rimmer's like, well, how does that save water? And Rimmer also believes that this is a wind-up to a prank, which it is. And it is, the prank is that he likes to sneeze and then iron the sneezes out of his pants. Meanwhile, Rimmer is also reading, I love this, Astronavigation for Dummies. Lister is like ironing his suit, and we find out why. He is going to a little area, and like an observation area in the ship, to a gravestone that has a bunch of photos, but one of them is Kochanski's, and it's meant to kind of be a memorial to those they've lost. So this is our first hint that Kochanski is dead, or is she? He comes to read her one of her favorite book. He brings Jane Austen. If we remember anything from Series 7 in particular, we'll remember that Jane Austen was kind of a big thing. He gets very emotional, and all of a sudden the cat drops out of nowhere, very disheveled. He was near the water tank on G deck when something got him. It attacked him. Something's living in it. Of course, he's more worried about his hair clothes. They're dry cleaning. So he's very traumatized. They go back to the quarters. They're talking about this when Crichton comes back from his holiday wearing a Hawaiian shirt and all that. He's told the monster in the tank, and Crichton immediately gets back into full panic mode. That's his switch. Panic, relax. Panic, relax. So the monster may or may not be draining their last water supply tank. So being the classic man of action, Rimmer tells them they got to go take care of this, and then he's going to read a magazine. So obviously he's not going down with them in this diving bell into the tank. They're looking for the creature. Rimmer is back reading a car magazine, which I think is obviously hilarious here. Not really helping. Still reading as they're being attacked, basically, because it comes up from the interior. Rimmer finally notices. Rimmer panics, and then whatever it is seems to disappear. They pull them up. It's a giant, like, squid-like monster that attacks them. Like I said, it reaches the diving bell. But when Rimmer finally does notice, he spent this whole time dancing beforehand. They get out, they're a wreck. And they chew out Rimmer, obviously. Crichton calls it what he believes to be some sort of dimension-jumping Leviathan. And it may or may not have left for a different dimension when all of a sudden, a new hologram is activated. It's Katerina Bartolowski, played by Sophie Winkleman, former science officer of Red Dwarf. She is now assuming command, and she too is a hard light drive. She and Rimmer start talking about the water loss and neglect of the last 9 years. They broke apparently one of the tanks. There's a faucet left on the officers' quarters 9 years previously that wasted one of their water tanks. Rimmer questions why there can be somehow two holograms when the ship is only supposed to sustain one, and apparently the real answer is that she's here to replace him. Because apparently he's been falling down his duty for Lister, and Lister's turning into a Slav, and we need to have him repopulate the human race. Even possibly return home, and she gives Rimmer 24 hours to get his affairs in order before he's deactivated, and his hard drive is shot into space. So she's now going to look after Lister, and so obviously Rimmer hates her. He hates her passionately. Lister seems to like her. Everyone else seems to like her as well. And she walks in on Rimmer once again with his back turned, bad-mouthing her as Crichton tries to warn him, and then he sends Crichton to get some dirt on her. They plan to use some of the Leviathan's blood and the transferring stuff to harness it to travel to another dimension for Lister to find a mate to bring back and repopulate the human race. Then they cut to a montage of Katerina dissecting part of the squid to take out the things they need. They open a dimensional laser, open a portal, and that is where we leave part 1. And now we go on to part 2. So we open the portal as we left off. Crichton returns to give Rimmer the bad news. He can't find any dirt on Katerina. Lister's a little bit nervous. Like I said, the portal opens and they create a massive suction. And they get a warning that they don't exist. And this is the first little ha bit that we get really going here. They're being taken to the nearest valid reality. Cut to a TV shop in the supposed real world where they're appearing on the screens of all the TVs in the place. Katerina manages to deactivate Rimmer's hard light drive, and he shoots into the portal first, into the TV shop and through a sign. Now everybody in the TV shop is in there. They all fall through. And there's a show being promoted called Back to Red Dwarf. The whole crew, like I said, pulled through. They're back in the 21st century in a TV shop. Only the cat lands gracefully. Everybody else just crashes. Now they're watching themselves on TV as a salesman is trying to sell a couple on TV, and they hear them say sci-scan, and then somebody makes fun of it as being like that's their answer for anything to find answers in a TV show. It gets really meta here. They leave the store, head out, they find DVDs of themselves. This is the fun part. DVDs about them. They are fictional. Lister realizes that somehow they've escaped to the real world. Lister has basically an existential crisis. He's being real. He's not real. He's followed by the cat, and then Rimmer is actually happy about it because none of that bad stuff actually happened to him. It's not real. Lister basically memes himself in front of a poster, pointing at it. That's one of my favorite points of this. The new series they are at now called Back to Earth. They open up a DVD case and it's empty because the show hasn't been released yet. And supposedly it's taking place after series 10. So we're actually behind ourselves here, but that's fun. Who cares? Said they had to track down the actors and creators because basically they're running out of time. This is the end of the line. And when this ends, they will be dead. And then when they realize it's a 3-parter, Rimmer just talks about how much he hates them. But they need money. So they managed to go into a couch, find a bunch of cell phones, 19 pounds, 13 pence. It looks like they're weirdly enough that they're in either I know they're kind of supposed to be in a mall, but it actually feels like they're in an IKEA store for some reason. They get the bus and they head they don't get on the bus now. They go to the London Underground first, and they go to a shop called They Walk Among Us. It's got toys and things and all about them. And they meet the clerk, Jeremy Swift, who most people know is Leslie Higgins from Ted Lasso. They talk about how they're not the actors, but they're the real characters. And then he even talks about how, you got here through a dimension skid? And they're like, yeah. He calls a superfan, trying to help them out. They want info on when's the last episode. They've got to start. And then he can't give them the information. Space Corps Directive 596. Rimmer immediately jumps in. Leslie Higgins Jeremy Swift's character is very much amused by this because then Crichton obviously corrects him. They do all the best bits here. Track her to find this guy Swallow, a special prop creator. They talk about all the different things like the Holly Hop Drive, all that stuff. Higgins tries to help them, but like I said, anything that they could have used, it could have been, they left on Red Dwarf. So this is when they have to take the bus, and of course Crichton's in the disguise. Cat keeps leaving these little origami things everywhere, and this will be important, but let's keep going. Lister gets teary seeing actors who play Kachansky in a magazine when these kids start talking to him, and she's got kids too. So this is Chloe Annette. Some of the kids come over, and like I said, they're fans of him because they've watched him with their dad on Dave TV. And they even think Dave TV is named for him. The kids have worked it out, too, by the way, that Kachansky's not dead. She faked her death, being sucked out of Eric, and only Crichton saw her, and he covered it up. Only to, quote-unquote, he's the only one who, quote-unquote, saw her die. And this starts getting Lister's mind working. She apparently left it on Blue Bidget because she got sick of Lister moping around and throwing away his life. And they tell him, next series, go find her. And the kids tell him, basically. They get off the bus, and Katarina has finally caught up to them. And she's going to kill Rimmer when he pushes her in front of a car. And he said, I bet you didn't see that coming. And Crichton goes, I did. But this is where we really start to embody the mimic or play off Blade Runner. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Blade Runner. This is the classic Ridley Scott sci-fi based on a dude robot's dream. And I like it as a movie. It's not everybody's favorite. Some people say it's very boring, but I think you have to look at it from a philosophical point of view because it's all about creatures, the little replicants, searching for their creator because they want to live. This is what they're parroting here. And apparently, if you go back, supposedly Blade Runner originally had some influence on Doug Naylor and Rob Grant creating Red Dwarf. Very loosely. But now we're directly playing this. And when we go to see the Swallow guy, it's just like the guy who made the eyes in Blade Runner. It almost is, it's exactly set up the exact same way. They're not going to kill him. And so what they end up doing is they need to find their creator. This guy makes noses, by the way. So they take the car that he stole from the head of the fan club that it looks exactly like Starbug. And off we go into part 3. So they're in the little Starbug mini car looking for their creators. They're basically trying to stave off, like I said, their fictional death. They go looking for Craig Charles, who plays Lister. Crichton finds a mailbox that he thinks is a droid. They're going to ask for direction. It doesn't respond. He opens it. It's filled with letters. He's like, they stole the circuits. Apparently, Craig is on Coronation Street this time. He's in a pub practicing his line. Before they enter and find him, Craig is warned by a buddy that the Red Dwarf crew is looking for him. He thinks it's a gag. Lister comes in. Craig gets really freaked out when he sees himself. Apparently, I'm assuming they're looking for Doug Naylor. Learn that their final episode is in part 3, and so they're on borrowed time. Lister says he hates himself. And this is what leads us to the Blade Runner references, where we get even more explicit, which is that ziggurat in the middle of London, which is just like the Tyrell ziggurat in Blade Runner. So we go up to meet the creator. They ring the doorbell, and it's the Red Dwarf theme. And they're led in by these little mini midget. It looks like from the little, not Rimmer World, but the one where they missed him and they made the Rimmer man. That little experience that really turned him off in Series 7. They led into the creator, who looks just like Tyrell from Blade Runner, played by Richard O'Callaghan. Before they get in there, he loads bullets that have all their names on them. Like I said, little munchkin Rimmers are just creepy as hell. They are asking for more life, and they pitch ideas for new episodes and spin-offs. They sit down and read the shooting script. It hasn't even been shot yet, but everything they're saying, they come to find out, is already written. But they do then reenact a scene where I think Decker kills one of the replicants, where she runs through glass. They play out that whole scene and the flea scene, but it's not real. It hasn't been shot yet, and they make the London streets look like Blade Runner's Los Angeles from the 21st century. Like I said, they all get shot, like Harrison Ford character does to them. Turns out this is a written scene. Blade Runner inspired their lives, and now it will inspire their deaths. Lister kicks the gun to Kat's hands, and Rimmer gets mad that he was a cheap joke, like the whole Rachel thing, which is funny because Rachel is also a character in Blade Runner who is a replicant. But what's funny is that when they ask him to write them more life, the creator sits down and writes that the gun comes back to him. Rimmer goes full Rutger Hauer in Blade Runner and starts trying to kill the creator, like squeezing his head, and he does accidentally kill him, supposedly. And now they're wondering how they exist, and apparently they only exist because the script does. This is how he dies in it. Like, it was literally already written. They look for an ending, and Lister ends up burning it in the fireplace and starts typing a new one, and everything he types they end up doing and saying. Lister makes Rimmer start marching around like a dork. Crichton steps on rakes, everything like that. Really funny gags. Kat asks why he keeps making these origamis, and Crichton tells him to blow into it. And this turns out to be the squid. It's like the despair squid attacking them again. They've been put into this weird reality, and they're being attacked in their subconscious, and their experiencing has made Lister basically made him want to live again, even knowing that none of this is real. And then they hear what appears to be Kachansky smells her perfume in the other room. This is another Rachel reference. Crichton finally comes clean and tells him she's not dead. She's alive in the real ward. He's torn over whether to stay or go back to the real world, and everyone else starts fading because they are realizing this is fake, and so they're waking up. They are waking back up on Red Dwarf, where they came out of the diving bell. So the whole thing with Katarina and all that never happened. Basically, as they were attacked by the squid, their antibodies have fought this thing off. They chose to go back, but Lister did not, and he is succumbing to this attack and staying, and Kachansky comes in, dressed as Rachel from Blade Runner. Talks of never wanting to wake up. They're given an option to stay in this unreality. They're driving off together. It's sort of like a play on the fact that that's what Decker and Rachel did at the end of that movie. They run away together. He then stops suddenly and gets out and walks off. And apparently he's decided to leave, to go looking for the real Kachansky. Very confident, and finally wakes up. The female squid, and this was a female version of the despair squid, apparently uses a different kind of ink. It uses joy rather than despair as a defense. The cat owns up that he actually brought the despair squid, or this joy squid, from the water planet years ago. She used to be the, I'm gonna eat you little fishy, and he left her in the tank and forgot about her. Sadly, thanks to quantum mechanics, as Crichton will point out, that fake universe out there still goes, so we will still go on watching them. And that brings us to the end of the entirety of my recap of our examination of Back to Earth, which at first I wasn't exactly sure how I was going to feel about it, but I honestly think that as a whole, I kind of like it. I like the whole meta. I'm a huge fan of Community, so I like anything that gets very meta, over the top. You know, anything of that nature where we start acknowledging reality. I'm always a fan of those shows. So ultimately, as a whole, I really like this show. The first episode was a little slow getting going. It felt like we were trying to find our footing again, and we reset stuff. And of course, we didn't explain anything about how we got back here to this point after Series 8. So who cares? But I love the fact that we start acknowledging that, and then we play on the. And I actually enjoyed the whole Blade Runner trope, because as I've come to learn by doing a little research, that it was, I think, a very loose inspiration for this. But if you think about this, if they're not real and they've sort of become fictional, then they are heavily dependent on their creators, which is exactly like the replicants in Blade Runner when they escaped to Earth after coming back from space. They wanted to keep living when they had a fixed half-life. And so they wanted to keep living, and they wanted to sort of find their own way in the world. And so I love the whole trope of playing on that. But it was absolutely hilarious. So next time, on to Series 10, and we'll be back posting more regularly. I hope to basically have us back on track next week, and we'll be going 2 times a week from now on, getting back on track as we go through. We've only got 3 series left, folks. But if you want to talk more about Red Dwarf, Blade Runner, I'm open to it. I know my Not Funny Guy colleague Casey is not a fan. I know there are other people who aren't fans either. But if you want to talk about any of that, please comment or write us. You can contact us on social media, but you can also write us at notfunnyguysoffthereal@gmail.com, in the description with all our socials and in the ticker right now. Please write, give me ideas. What are your thoughts on Blade Runner? What are your thoughts on this series? I'd like to hear that. I mean, honestly, it was okay. I didn't hate it. I think as a whole, it actually got kind of funny. I love seeing Jeremy Higgins from Ted Lasso. That actually cracked me up the most. And I think that scene in episode 2 with the whole TV thing and their whole reality bending and the meta, I like that. What do you think about meta comedy and meta television, all that kind of stuff as a genre? All kind of fair questions to ask. So, also, in the meantime, check out where we are with our main podcast, our other Not Funny Guys products. We have our main podcast, Not Funny Guys Presents Off the Reels, where we just finished the last Jurassic Park Rebirth, and we're now moving on to Scream, which is weird because I thought that as a franchise that would better fit with Casey and Eric's other podcast, where I think they've watched it, that first one at least. Not Funny Guys Presents Wrestling with the Horror, where they talk about wrestling and horror movies. But apparently we're cross-posting now. And if that's not your cup of tea, you should check out Not Funny Guys Presents Thinking About Thinking. Season 2 has just kicked off. We have an episode out now. Go check it out, but we're going to keep going. Me, Dr. John, and our Not Funny gal, Dr. Kristen, are going to keep rolling along there with things we're thinking about. But until then, don't be a smeghead. Keep it not funny, and I'll see you next time.